melodic heavy metal. Playing it heavier, louder, raunchier, faster. 99.1 CJAM. This is the Signals of Intuition.
99.1 CGM FM. There's brand new White Wizzard right there from their new album, The Devil's Cut. That was Kings of the Highway. And tonight on the Signals of Intuition, we've got a very special show. We've got John and Joseph, the bass player and singer of White Wizzard. They're going to be with us for most of the show tonight. So right now, let's get both of those guys on the line.
You there?
Hi, Joseph.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, and John, you're on the line too?
Hello?
Hey, John. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's dive into this. Let's start by, we'll get both of your names and talk a little bit about how you sort of got started playing music, and don't forget to mention what you play in White Wizzard.
You first, Joe.
My name's Joseph Michael, lead singer for White Wizzard. And originally I started off as a guitar player. I was really into bands like Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith, things like that. And my cousin started getting me into metal like Iron Maiden and King Diamond. And then I started getting into vocalists like Sebastian Bach, things like that. And that's when I really started.
Did you have any classical training as a singer or anything like that? Have you taken lessons?
No, I never took a lesson, but I did drop out of high school to teach music theory and application.
Really?
Yeah, everything I've done has been self-taught through reading and just, trial and error in front of a mirror, there's nothing in those books or that a teacher, is going to tell you that you can't learn on your own if you're willing,
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, and John, how about yourself?
Yeah, I grew up typical influences you would expect, 70s and 80s rock and heavy metal, Rush, Iron Maiden, Led Zeppelin, Judas Priest, Dio, Scorpions, Pink Floyd, that's all the stuff I really liked. And I think Rush and Iron Maiden were the two bands that really kind of made me want to pick up a bass guitar and start, being a musician. And it just kind of morphed from there, totally self-taught.
Do you play any other instruments?
Yeah, I played, bass and electric guitar and acoustic guitar, and I'm kind of getting into flamenco now. But I also play an instrument called a bouzouki. It's kind of a Greek instrument, and anything with strings I can get my hands on, I'm always trying to play. But bass is still my forte instrument.
Mm-hmm. And then now, before joining White Wizzard, this question goes for both of you. Did you guys play in any other bands? How did you guys get started playing with bands and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I formed a band called Midnight Rain that had some decent amount of success back when I was living in Utica. Brought it out to LA, but really it's like Midnight Rain was kind of like John's White Wizzard. It was my baby. I played all the instruments except the drums in the studio.
Yeah, I had a band called Creatures of Habit, same kind of thing. I was up in Northern California before I moved to Los Angeles. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, so same kind of thing. We did a record with that and played shows, and it was pretty successful for a while. And then I made the move to LA, and I was actually kind of a journeyman for a while. I was just going out with different bands, and I think Joseph and I have both lived both those realities, making our own project and doing that, and also playing with other acts and doing various things for them.
Yeah, I do a lot of session work. I write for other people, things like that. That's my biggest thing up until I joined White Wizzard was writing with other people. Getting stuff in soundtracks, doing a lot of studio work.
Is that a really common thing out in LA to just sort of, if you're a musician, you're always trying to find other bands, link up with other bands, and do writing for TV and movies and that kind of thing?
No, that's a very small little clique of people that do that. As much as people like to fantasize about this vast sea of talented people, just waiting for the right band in LA, it's a fallacy. There's really hardly any talent at all in a bunch of hacks.
Yeah, or the people that are talented spread themselves so thin they never really commit to one thing. So it's there's not a concise group of 4 really talented people making one band and putting all their effort into it. You've got 4 guys that are in 5 different fucking bands that are half-assing every one of them. So you get a lot of that. You get a lot of cover bands. A lot of the talented people give up on original music and they go straight to covers because there's more money in it right away. It's easier to do. So it's a various, LA is actually probably the hardest place to start a band because of also all of the distractions. Everyone's got fucking 20 different things to do, and they, all the best bands started like up in Sheffield, England, where it sucked and it was cold,
Yeah.
I mean, no one had anything to do, so they fucking played music 12 hours a day.
So John, now, how did the band form? How did White Wizzard come to be?
I'd been touring with bands for a couple of years, and I just was playing heavy metal that I didn't dig, and I went to see Heaven and Hell when they got back together, and I'd been, going to metal shows, and I kind of had come, you go full circle as a musician. I went through a lot of different changes and things that I got into over the years, but the core of the roots of why I became a musician were bands like Rush and Iron Maiden and all those bands I mentioned. I just decided, you know what, I'm kind of sick of doing this stuff. I want to make the type of band, what's the type of band I would want to be in, and I always wrote songs and always, had an inclination to form my own band, and I finally just kind of said fuck it one day. I think I joined and went and played a couple shows of the band I wasn't feeling, and I just went and wrote some songs. I wrote all the musical pieces for what would become the 3 songs on our EP, Celestina, Octane Gypsy, and Megalodon. Those are the first 3 things I wrote for White Wizzard. And, I just kind of like put them all together on some demos, and then I called James Paul Luna, who'd been in Jet Fuel with me briefly. I just played bass for them a few times. And James and I used to spend late nights talking about all that music, and he dug it too, and Fuel was very different. It was really that garagey, poppy kind of, totally different kind of band. But, I saw his potential go in that direction, so I kind of pushed him to go this direction. I played him the demos, and Tyler, the drummer, who's in Holy Grail now, he came over as well, because he was in Jet Fuel. They were kind of childhood buddies, and so they kind of, were working together as a team, trying to figure out what they were going to do, because Jet Fuel had broken up. So, yeah, and I just presented the demos, and then found a guitar player, and it was formed rather quickly after that. So it was just, I kind of just wrote some songs and had a vision, and we just kind of put it together. And then I think the big conduit for us was, for White Wizzard in general, was Davey Voorhees, the video director that did the High Speed GTO video. Mm-hmm. He just contacted us through the MySpace after we threw some songs up and was like, dude, I moved to LA and all I want to do is make 80s metal videos. He's like, I'll do it for free. And he had some good ideas. And then, I had my car and we sat down, we talked about this fun video idea, and Davey just kind of made it happen. And that's what really got us attention, was that video.
So that video is what landed you guys on Earache?
I would say so. I credit the video as being the thing that got us attention, that got us noticed. That's, to me, that was the conduit to people knowing who we were and getting people excited. And then, of course, there was some strong songs to go with it that, I think solidified it. And, of course, that lineup didn't last long, so we kind of were doing our separate things when that video was getting popular, which was kind of funny. So by the time that, people knew who we were doing 2 separate things, and I was continuing on with White Wizzard. They were doing something different. So it was kind of old news by the time the EP got released, but nonetheless, it still got really both of us noticed. And I think it's what got both Holy Grail and White Wizzard kind of record deals, was that initial video and people getting excited about a couple things, the musicianship, the songs, the singer, of course. James had his thing going on. So both labels, I think, got a good piece of the talent that made that core thing, and now they have 2 bands. So but that's the roots of it, man, is that video and that initial vision,
Yeah, and then so like after the EP comes out, obviously the next record you did was a totally new lineup. So it was sort of like you say, you guys just kind of drifted apart and that was it. Because everything I've sort of, I've kind of scanned to learn a lot more about you guys, and it sort of seems like there was like a mutiny and the band just said, "Screw you, we're all leaving," or you fired everybody, or how did that all come to happen?
It didn't end necessarily, pretty, but a lot of these things don't. I mean, it just was a typical band with no management, a couple of different visions, some internal, bullshit that happens in bands. At the time, we argued, it didn't, we went our separate ways, but I didn't fire anybody. It was more that I think James, the singer, who, was kind of the other guy that kind of had, I think, a lot going on as far as what was brought to the table for that. he had a vision of doing something that was different than that, and I was kind of really set on my vision, and we just kind of butted heads on the directions to go, and they decided to go do their thing. It was because at the time there was no label interest. This was like a local little band we were doing, and we just kind of thought about what way to go with it, and they ran and did their thing. Label interest came months later. That's what's funny, from the video. So at the time, it was not really that big of a deal, I think, to everybody. I think even they were just kind of like, I think James wasn't really digging some of the songs that I wrote. He wanted to do something heavier, which they ended up doing. I wanted to get away from the whole "it's got to be so heavy" thing, and I wanted to kind of bring back songwriting in the metal. And we just had different visions. It happens all the time with artists. That's why it's hard to make a band work.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah, for sure.
But it definitely wasn't a matter of anyone being fired. It wasn't as dramatic as people think it was. But at the end of the day, of course, it got a little uglier when record labels started coming, because then, obviously everybody wants a record deal, and then you go from there. So I think in the end, it worked out great for both sides. Both bands have managed to do some pretty darn good stuff. Neither of us are doing anything huge yet, but it's nice to see that out of that little meeting in my apartment that I called playing some demos, that both bands were able to come to fruition. And of course, with Davey doing that video, which we all owe a lot to him for that.
White Wizzard would have just stagnated if that lineup stayed. I mean, first of all, like, the guys on the first lineup wouldn't have been able to sing or play what ended up being over the top. Luna's a great singer, but I don't think he could have sang some of that stuff Wyatt did. And then just the same with the new record. You wouldn't have Over the Top, you wouldn't have Devil's Cut.
What was sort of the big jump between High Speed GTO and Over the Top? Like, did you finally have a real band in place by the time you got to Over the Top?
No, what happened is to be honest, when we did GTO, I mean, Luna's got certain pockets that he's comfortable singing in, and I think that, I'm pretty adventurous with where I want to take vocal melodies. Joseph's totally right on that. And basically, I remember when we did GTO, vocal melodies were kind of still shaky when we went in the studio, and the producer kind of helped get some of those done, and I think that, live, some of that stuff was a little difficult for James, at least back then. I think he's gotten better now as he's progressed and become more serious, but, it was kind of like a change of direction for James from what he'd been doing before, so it was an adjustment process. And I think that as soon as that lineup split and those guys went to do their thing, I was determined to keep my vision going. And I was like, fine, you don't like my songs. Well, I'm going to, keep kicking ass. And I believed in it, So I actually went in my room. It's funny. Songs came in these blocks of time. I wrote 3 more songs, and they were Over the Top, 40 Deuces, and White Wizzard. I wrote them completely, like with lyrics and vocal melodies and all the music. And I was really stoked on them. And those are the 3 songs that I think are 3 of the more, popular songs off that record. And then, from there, I just demoed them. And then when I finally found a singer, when Wyatt came out, we worked on the songs, and Wyatt infused his character into them. And I took them to my producers. At the time, it was just me, Jesse Appelhans, the drummer, and Wyatt. And we went out to my producer's place at his studio. I paid my producer out of pocket. Eric wasn't even on board quite yet. We were talking about things at that time, but I fronted the money. I recorded those 3 songs, and my producer mixed them, and that's how they ended up on the record. Over the Top, 40 Deuces and White Wizzard were recorded before we even had the full lineup, before Eric or anyone else was solidified as far as that, next run of songs. So those 3 songs were in the can. I had signed a deal with Eric by then for White Wizzard. And at that point, when the rest of the band was formed, the next 6 songs, I wrote all those songs, and then we as a band kind of put them together. So those first 3 songs, Over the Top, 40 Deuces, and White Wizzard, were the first batch, and those were written kind of out of the initial, split up of that first lineup just by myself in my bedroom.
Oh, okay, I see. All right, guys. Well, right now we've got to go to a break. Can I get you to each pick a couple of songs from the first EP, and then as the show goes on, we'll slowly work our way through your discography, leading up to the new record.
Yeah.
All right. So from the first EP, what are your choices?
Joseph, you go first.
I'd say Megalodon.
Okay.
Mine would be Octane Gypsy and Celestina if there's 2, but if there's one, Octane Gypsy, because it doesn't get enough mention. I think Octane Gypsy's my favorite song on that EP.
Yeah, we can do 2. That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's throw High Speed GTO into the mix as well.
Sure.
Okay, great. All right, here we go. So from White Wizzard from the first EP, this is Megalodon. 99.1 CJAM FM. There's 4 tracks from the first White Wizzard EP. We had Celestina, High Speed GTO, Octane Gypsy, and Megalodon kicking everything off. Right now, we've got 2 members of White Wizzard on the line right now. That's Joseph the singer and John the bass player, the member who started the band. So far, we've talked about their first 2 records, Over the Top and High Speed GTO, and right now we're going to dive into their 3rd record, Flying Tigers. And I have to admit, Flying Tigers is the one record I really haven't heard that much of. I've heard maybe the first 5 songs, but supposedly the other half of this record is a concept album. What can you tell me about that and sort of how this record came together?
Yeah, I mean, I had a concept in my mind. I had some songs together that were a little bit more progressive. They seemed to have kind of a tied-in feel to them, and it was just kind of like, to be honest, man, I was going through a lot as far as trying to get the musicians together for the band, and it was a very kind of just like introverted process where I just kind of decided to have some fun with it and dive into my more progressive roots a bit, and just wanted to do something a little bit different. I think that I didn't want to do Over the Top Part 2. I wanted to continue to expand the band's sound, so in the future we have more possibilities. And I think some people dug it, some people didn't, but I'm proud of the record. It's actually those 6 songs are one of my favorite things that I've written, so I'm proud of it. I wish I'd have had better lead guitar players at the time, but at the time I back from Wales, so I had to take everything up on my own. So it's it's good, but it could be better.
And then Wyatt, like he was in the band for Over the Top, and then he left, and then he came back. Why did he leave initially?
Well, he left the first time because we were having just a lot of problems within the band. I think as far as like Wyatt never really liked LA. He moved out from Florida, and he never really felt comfortable. He could never establish himself here, so he was just kind of drifting. And he missed home. He had a girlfriend back there, and he's got his life, his family. So after we did a UK tour, he just was kind of like frustrated and missing home. And he went back home and said, look, I don't want to move back to LA. And at the same time, we had to fire Eric Kleber, our guitarist, for multiple incidents on the road and just a real heavy drinking issue that we couldn't deal with anymore. He showed up drunk. We were going to be on the BBC for Bruce Dickinson, and he showed up really drunk and disappeared, and then like an hour before, and we just were like, man, we just can't have the drinking. He's landed on his feet now, and I wish him the best. But at the time, it was a problem. So we had all these things happen, and Wyatt we got off of the Download Festival, and I wrote him, and he said, I just got a great job. I can't do it. My work schedule won't allow it. So we had to go get a sub singer. Wyatt just didn't want to really tour anymore. He kind of just introverted back into his home life. And that's why we went through a couple of singers that year. And then he reached out to me at the end of that year wanting to maybe give it a second chance. And the fans loved him. Of course, I loved his voice. So I was like, well, let's try to make it work and put the past behind us. And
I wanted to do the easy job and record the record and take all the credit, and then didn't want to do the hard work of actually going out and selling the thing.
And Joseph's right, because what happened is Wyatt told me everything I wanted to hear. He did the record. And then literally, this was pretty rough. About 3 weeks, but we booked 3 tours, Forbidden, Iced Earth, and Firewind. Big tours for us. And we were about to go out and do them successively. And 3 weeks before the tours were supposed to start, I called Wyatt, and I asked him, I said, can I book your flight? Are you confirmed? He said yes. And then a week later, me and Giovanni, the drummer, were on our way to practice, and we got this long email. And Wyatt was just like, I just got a great job, and I talked it over with my family, and I just can't do these tours, and I'm sorry. I regret to inform you, yada, yada. And it was just like, wow, we have 3 tours booked, and we have 2 weeks before we leave on the first one. And Mikey Grimio, who had come through in a pinch for us for Download Festival, so we didn't have to cancel that, came through and did all those tours for us, so we didn't have to cancel because we had 2 choices: sit at home or keep going. So we did them. It was tough, but hey, we did what we had to do. And then after that, we looked for our permanent singer, and that's when we found Joseph, who was local and the real deal and wants to tour and isn't like that. So it was tough for us because we did 2 studio records with the guy, and he didn't want to tour much, and he lives across the country, and it put us in a real tough bind. So it's nice to finally have Joseph, and we've actually all been together for a year. This is just our first release, so we're excited to finally have music out there so we can go show what this lineup's capable of.
Yeah, and then before we really dive into the new record and we can finally bring Joseph more into this conversation, let's talk a little bit more about touring. What is a typical day like on the White Wizzard tour bus now? Are you guys finally enjoying going out and touring?
Sure. I mean, well, Giovanni, it starts by Giovanni being at the gas station bathroom for about 45 minutes with his print bag to make sure he looks good. That's usually a day starts with us going to do a rest stop or a gas station, and our drummer spending a lot of time in the bathroom because he has to be fresh. And then the rest of it is just us farting and telling jokes and getting to the venue. That's pretty much it.
So you mentioned Firewind and I think a few other names. Who have you guys toured with over the years?
Wow. Well, our first big tour was with Korpiklani and Tyr, a couple of Viking metal and folk metal bands. It actually went over really well because the crowd loved us. That was a great tour for us. We did Edguy. We had toured with everyone from Forbidden and Havoc and Revocation, more heavier thrash bands, all the way over to Firewind, a Greek power metal band, to Iced Earth, which of course you're familiar with. So yeah, we've done a lot of different tours with different styles of bands, but of course we haven't toured as much as we would have liked to because we didn't have our singer willing to tour most of the time. Otherwise, I'd probably have about 30 more bands on that list.
Oh, wow. Where did you tour Firewind? Was it here in North America?
Yeah, we played in Canada, we played Montreal, and I think Ottawa. Those were the two. And then we played Vancouver.
Oh, okay. Because that's one thing that always bums me out is Firewind always does. They always do North American tours. They never come anywhere near Detroit. So otherwise, I probably would have seen you guys on that tour.
Yeah, no Detroit show there. It was a fun tour. It was decent. I think, of course, the most exciting tour was Iced Earth in Europe because they're huge over there. So that was an amazing experience.
Oh, and I'm sure you guys would have went over huge too, because traditional metal is huge over there.
Yeah, it really helped us solidify ourselves. That's why we're able to go over there and headline. We're booking a tour right now for the fall, and it's going to be really good.
Oh, wow. That's very cool. So what's an average set list like nowadays? Are you guys still playing older stuff off of High Speed GTO and Over the Top, or are you focusing on new stuff? Or
Take it, Joe.
Well, I mean, before the record came out, we were playing obviously all the old stuff. We're probably gonna ditch like a lot of those songs for the most part, just because we have to push the new record.
Do you think we'll get a proper live album or DVD sometime in the future?
Oh, definitely. This band is the sickest live band that I've seen in a long time. That was one of the first things that I noticed. Like we went out on tour after I'd been in the band for 2 weeks, maybe 2 rehearsals. Bam went out, and as soon as we stepped on stage, it was just saying it was magical.
And then you guys have done all your records with Ralph Patlin. Is he just like a mixing guy, or is he really involved in the recording process?
He's a full producer. I mean, he's we come with the songs written, but he does his part. He's definitely I think all great bands they align themselves with good producers, and I think that it's just as important in the process, at least for records. Just like it's good to have a good mixing engineer or sound engineer when you play live. I mean, no one in a band can do everything. And I think that we all have knowledge of the recording process, and everyone's got experience doing it ourselves. But Ralph's a special talent, and he definitely brings a lot to the table, both as a producer and a mixer. So yeah, he's definitely been a part of how those albums sound. And I know Joseph had a solid experience recording vocals with him as well.
Well, one thing, I mean, obviously he does an amazing job in terms of the mix. You got a great drum sound, great guitar sound, all of that. I really like how dynamic he really keeps every record. You don't have this, you don't have a really brick-walled sound, which is nice.
Yeah. he doesn't flatten out, the production at all. It's a pretty dynamic.
He understands how to use compression, and I think a lot of engineers just overuse the fuck out of it.
Well, that's a modern thing. Like, the whole point of this band, I think, is a rejection of a lot of the bullshit that goes on in modern metal.
Yep.
It's not that they're misusing it; they're just using it to make those records sound like everything else. And Alf knows that this band isn't like everything.
Exactly. There's more character in it because everything's overly pushed. That's been the sound. That's been the style. Is over pushing. It's kind of like I remember a few years ago on cable TV or on TV when all of a sudden commercials started becoming louder. You'd be watching something at one volume and it makes you jump when the commercial comes on. That's the same effect. That's what they're doing with a lot of metal these days, is trying to overhype the sound and loudness of it. But they lose a lot of dynamics when they do that. And I think Ralph, he keeps those dynamics intact, and that makes all the difference in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, and it makes for Really great sounding stuff that you can crank up and everything. So right now, guys, we've got to go to another break. So what I was thinking, let's continue working our way through your discography, and we'll play a couple songs off of Over the Top. So can I get you to pick 2 songs each from Over the Top that you like?
It's got to be Out of Control and 40 Deuces.
Okay, and John, your 2?
I'll go. I'm going to go with Live Free or Die and High Roller. Let's do those.
Oh, nice one. Love that one. Okay, and also, since I want to come back and dive into the new record and talk about the new lineup and everything, let's play one song sort of to tease the new album that we can come back with.
I'll throw in Strike the Iron.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one that has sort of like the Hellion Electric Eye thing, right? Where the first track leads into the second one. The first one's sort of instrumental.
Yeah.
Forging the Steel is track 1, and then Strike the Iron is the actual song, track 2. Forging the Steel is that song that's going to end up going to the PA, before we come on stage, like the beginning of Aces High or Hellion. Like it's meant to be that, basically.
Okay, yeah, right. All right, so from Over the Top right here, White Wizzard's 2010 album, this is 40 Deuces. And we'll be back with more from John and Joseph from White Wizzard. 99.1 CGM FM. There's White Wizzard right there from their brand new album, The Devil's Cut. That was Strike the Iron. Before that, we had 4 tracks off their 2010 album, Over the Top. That was Out of Control, Live Free or Die, High Roller, and 40 Deuces. And tonight on the show, we've had John and Joseph of White Wizzard. They've been with us for the first hour. They're going to be sticking around for a little bit longer so we can discuss this new album of theirs. So guys, I have to say, first of all, I'm really impressed with the new album. I finally feel like all the pieces are together in the band, and what you're saying, it seems like you finally now have a stable lineup for once. What can you tell me about how this lineup came together?
Well, Jake, I'll start and turn it over to Joseph. Jake's been in the band for, a couple of years. I mean, Jake, Gio, and myself. Giovanni's, the Dave Murray of this band. He's been there, for a long, long time, since Over the Top. So, Gio and Jake and I kind of formed a bond, 2 years ago, over 2 years ago when he joined. So, it's really been a matter of solidifying that second guitar and singer spot. Once Wyatt flaked on those tours, we had to bring subs. Mikey and CJ, the guys that did a great job, and they're great guys, they were never really our choices for the permanent dudes, but we had to get those tours done. Yeah. Once those happened, we found, Will Wallner hit us up on Facebook. It turned out he lived across the street from Jake. That was awesome. And then, Joseph suggested Will. He'd worked with him in a different project. Joseph can touch base on how, him and Will came to be and how that happened. Okay.
And then obviously the final piece of the puzzle was adding Joseph. So Joseph, how did you come into the fold?
Well, I mean, there's this Greek guitar player that I sang on his demos, and Will ended up, he was like the producer guy, like engineering the whole thing. And it's weird because we met, I was introduced to him by like an old friend that I met in like 1999, this Japanese girl who like put us together, and so we got the demo done, and I didn't hear from Will for a few months, and then all of a sudden, like, he called me out of the blue when I was in a grocery store. he's like, hey Joseph, like, you ever hear White Wizzard? I was like, yeah, I think I contacted those guys a while ago, but at the time I was just doing like paid studio work, like I couldn't just go out on the road. It was probably when they got Mikey. So I didn't even really give it any thought. I didn't really hear the music. And then, I checked out the videos after I spoke with John, and I was like, yeah, I could definitely see myself, all the high-rangey stuff is my take now.
Yeah. So obviously, I think for me, the biggest thing I notice on this new record is just how great the guitar playing is. Like, it seems like you've got 2 really solid guitar players in there.
Oh, yeah.
Are they both, did they go to, GIT or anything like that?
They didn't need to go to anywhere to learn that stuff. Those 2 are just monsters. Like, they live and breathe that shit. Can I say that?
Yeah, they've got very amazing. It's almost like they're the 2 perfect styles for a band like White Wizzard. You got the neo shrapnel guy in Jake. It's Marty Friedman, Jason Becker, real technical, really proficient. And then on the other side, you got Will Wallner, who's more improvisational. He's more, influenced by those British guys. He's got that magic, what I call that magic British dust in his veins. It's like he's got all those things that make all those great old school British guitar players, like everyone from Blackmore to Sykes and, you go down the list, it's just like he's got that special something going on, and a very character-rich player. And
The thing about Will is his alternate picking is so precise. Like, we all like to talk about Jake's technique, but I think Will's got him beat when it comes to alternate picking in terms of exact precision. It's insane. If you listen to some of those solo sections, it's remarkable. And Jake has so much feel. Like, I know it's going to get outshined by his sweet picking and his speed, but I mean, he's like a reincarnated fucking monster.
Yeah, I mean, that is a cool thing, is to hear a lot of kind of the neoclassical solos that haven't been on the earlier records too. So that's a very nice touch.
Oh yeah,
the band is a new band. It's you can't really compare it to the last couple of records. It's a completely different band.
That's what
John and Gio, that rhythm section and the songwriting is still there, but now you've got guys that just blow it out of the water.
Well, I kind of compare it to like Iron Maiden, where you've got the first two records, which are a little bit more raw, and then they kind of step it up around the Peace of Mind, Number of the Beast era, and I think that's what you guys have sort of done. You've kind of taken this template and really sort of bumped it up to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Joseph, Jake, and Will are eons beyond what we've had in the past as far as a two-guitar attack singer, and the amount of character and depth to their sonic palette is just way beyond what we ever had. So, of course, that allows a songwriter like me. I mean, the great thing is these guys write, too. So now that we've gotten past this stage, we're all starting to write and infuse ideas together. So that's, to me, going to be the final. I think the next record is going to be the breakout record. That's how I feel. I think this is the stepping stone album to that, to introduce the lineup, but it's just a taste. I think the next record is going to be a whole other ball of wax.
So do you finally feel that you have a stable lineup that you can move forward into the future with now?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, that's without question. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I think really for us, I'm not worried about the lineup anymore. I'm more worried about the state of the music industry, record labels, and building a fan base and PR. That's all I'm worried about anymore. I think the five of us are all on the same page. We all want to succeed. We know this is a strong conduit to do that. We all are going the same way. I think now it's really up to the other factors. It's like before it was the factors were that getting the right guys, guys that had their shit together or that could tour, that didn't have drug or alcohol problems to the point where they were fucking up all the time. Now we've got all these five guys that are all on the same page, moving the same direction. And now, as a band, we kind of have to weather the storm of all the other factors that kill bands and try to hopefully break through that. That's the next step.
Do you guys have a timeline for when we might hear a new record?
We already started writing, so
I'd love to have songs early 2014 if we could. It's really up to everything from the record label situation to, comes down to finances. If the record label wants to do a record, or if we end up having to consider doing something on our own. There's always different factors when it comes to the music industry, and money is a big part of it, and where the money's coming from, and you never want to throw bad money out, or you want to be smart with your decisions. So there's always a long process for that to play out, and we'll see. We definitely will have, I guarantee you, we'll have a record ready by the end of this year to record. That's for sure.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it, man. I can't wait. I love the last one, so I'm sure whatever you guys have coming up will be at least as good. So, guys, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. I know it's kind of tough to jumble everyone's schedules to get both of you on the line, so I want to thank you for that. So we haven't played anything from Flying Tigers yet. We've only done one song from the first record, so let's get you to pick 2 songs each from Flying Tigers, and then we'll close out the show with 2 from the new one. So can I get 2 from Flying Tigers?
Flying Tigers and Demons and Diamonds.
Okay, and John?
Starman, Sun, and Night Train to Tokyo.
Oh wow! I'd say Lightning and Sun Also Rises.
Lightning in My Hands and Sun Also Rises are kind of the longer, but probably the best songs in our opinions.
Storm Chasers, pretty good, catchy song. I don't know, that's got a great chorus.
Yep. Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, that grows on you for sure. I dig that song too. I like them all. I'm proud of the song.
It's my record. I like them all.
It's hard to pick, man. But no question about it, the bookend tracks, in my opinion, Sun Also Rises at the end, and of course, Lightning, Strike the Iron. Those are the songs that I think are going to. When we play live, I think those 2 songs are going to be very powerful. Put it that way. I think those songs will both really come to life live, and I think they're just set up to be great live songs, in my opinion.
Okay, well, let's do those two, and then maybe there'll be time for one more song. Who knows?
Oh, great.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. Very much appreciated. Thanks for taking the time out.
No, thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, no problem. You're very welcome.
Great.
All right. Thanks again, guys.
Cool.
Yeah, and have a great day up there.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Bye.
All right, so that was John and Joseph, the bass player and singer of White Wizzard. Right here, we've got the title track from their 2011 Flying Tigers. We'll be playing a couple tracks from that, and then a couple tracks from the new record, The Devil's Cut.